Welcome to the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Assemblyman Carter. Present. Assemblyman DeLong. Present. Assemblyman De Silva. Here. Assemblywoman Duran. Here. Assemblywoman Gonzalez. Here. Assemblyman Gurr. Here. Assemblyman Hibbets. Here. Assemblyman Koenig. Here. Assemblyman MacArthur. Here. Assemblyman Wynn. Assemblywoman Taylor. Present. Assemblywoman Thomas. Here. Chair Torres.
Please mark Assemblyman Wynn absent and present when he arrives. Welcome to the audience here in Carson City, those joining us by video conference in Las Vegas, and those listening over the internet. Just a couple housekeeping items. Please silence your electronic devices. If you wish to testify, please sign in at the table by the door and provide a business card to the committee secretary. For those joining online, please be sure to mute your microphone when you're not speaking to minimize background noise. When testifying, please turn on the microphone and clearly state your name and affiliation, if any, for the record. Then turn the microphone off each time you are done speaking. Any handouts should have already been provided to our committee manager. We expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we may not agree with another person's position. Committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents. Please do not view this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. Public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting. Each person will be limited to 2 minutes. In addition, the public may submit any written testimony to the committee up to 24 hours after the hearing. And I see that Assemblyman Wynn has arrived. Thank you. Please mark him present. At this time, just so the committee knows, we have 4 BDRs that will be introduced in our committee. So we're going to go ahead and begin with this motion before going into the bills. So today we have 4 BDR numbers. First, we will begin with BDR 2848, which revises provision governing public administrators. BDR 181056, revising provisions governing the Keep Nevada Working Task Force. BDR 18979, which revises provisions governing federal grants. And BDR 28450, which establishes requirements relating to labor agreements for certain public works projects. At this time, I will entertain a motion to introduce the 4 BDRs. I have a motion from Assemblyman Wynn and a second from Assemblywoman Taylor. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, this motion does pass. All right, and we will go ahead and move forward with our bill, with AB 299. So I'll go ahead and open the hearing on AB 299, which creates the Nevada Medal of Distinction. Speaker Yeager, when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair Torres, Vice Chair Duran, and members of the hardworking Assembly Government Affairs Committee. My name is Steve Yeager. I represent Assembly District 9, which is in Southwest Las Vegas. And as you know, this is my first time appearing in front of this committee, so let me say thank you for all of the work that you've done so far and all of the work you're going to be doing. It sounds like you got 4 additional BDRs this morning and probably more coming, so things are going to pick up, and I appreciate the work that you're all doing on behalf of your constituents. So, Chair, with your permission, how I'd like to present this is make some introductory remarks on Assembly Bill 299, and then I'm going to hand it over to my co-presenter, who I will introduce to take you through most of the bill, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions. So what you have in front of you today is Assembly Bill 299. It's not a very long bill, but I think it is an important one. It creates the Nevada Medal of Distinction. Now, I thought that one question I might get is, where did I come up with this idea? And so I have a confession to make. Last legislative session, towards the end of session, one of my constituents emailed me with this idea to have a Medal of Distinction or something like it in the state. We were too late in the session to do anything about it last session, and for the life of me, I cannot find that email. So I was not able to inform this constituent that we were actually going forward with this bill. So if by chance that person happens to be watching today, please reach out. We would love to have your involvement in this process, but I think I must have put that somewhere in my email that I wasn't able to find. So that was the genesis of the idea. It actually came from a constituent. And so when I decided to bring this bill this session, I asked some of the folks who work in the leadership office to help me flesh out the concept. And so I have with me directly to my right, Geneva Martin, who's interning with me for the 2023 session. And I want to just tell you a little bit about her, and then I'm going to hand it over for her to give her first taste of being part of the legislative process. So she was born and raised in Las Vegas and is a political science major with a minor in Spanish at her junior year at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, also known as UNLV. She is currently, as I said, the legislative intern for the Assembly Leadership Office. She has been doing an amazing job, and she is really to credit for how this bill came out. And she's beginning to prepare to take the LSAT, which, as many of you know, is the law school admissions test. So I've tried to talk her out of going to law school, but I think she really, really wants to do it. So anyway, that is Miss Martin's bio, and I'm going to hand it over to her to take you through the bill, and then hopefully you'll have some questions. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Geneva Martin, for the record, legislative intern for Assembly Leadership. First, I would like to begin by saying what a privilege it is to be sitting in front of all of you today, especially since I have had the unique opportunity of getting to see this bill all the way from an idea in an email to now being formally presented in front of this committee. With that being said, I'll just jump right in and begin with the structure of the bill. Assembly Bill 299 creates the Nevada Medal of Distinction and the Nevada Awards and Honors Board. The board is to be composed of 5 members who are residents of the state and appointed by the governor. The members of the board will serve 3-year terms and may be reappointed. The duties of the board, as set forth in subsection 3 of section 4, include the following. First, the board will be responsible for establishing a suitable design for the Nevada Medal of Distinction, such as a ribbon, a badge, or other insignia. Secondly, the board will be responsible for establishing the requirements for determining whether a person has made a significant and lasting contribution to the state. These requirements will lay the framework for the nominating committee that will be discussed later on. Third, the board will be responsible for procuring the manufacture of the Nevada Medal of Distinction and all of its physical parts. And lastly, taking any other action necessary to carry out the requirements related to the Nevada Medal of Distinction, such as arranging events and different event logistics. Administrative support for the Nevada Award and Honors Board will be provided by the Office of the Governor, and the board may apply for and accept grants, gifts, donations, bequests, or devices on behalf of the board to carry out their listed duties. On or before January 1st of each year, a selection committee composed of 9 members must be appointed as follows. 3 members will be appointed by the governor, 2 members appointed by the Senate Majority Leader, 2 members appointed by the Speaker of the Assembly, and 2 members appointed by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Nevada. The membership of the selection committee must be posted on the internet website of the Office of the Governor by the Nevada Award and Honors Board. On or before the deadline established by the board, each member of the selection committee will submit to the board the nomination of 1 person who is living and 1 who is deceased to receive the Nevada Medal of Honor for that year. The board must post the nominations that are received from each member of the selection committee on the internet website of the governor as well. After the awardees have been selected, the board will hold a ceremony to announce the recipients of the Nevada Medal of Distinction for that year. To guarantee the inclusion of all of Nevada, the ceremony will take place in Carson City during each odd-numbered year when the legislature is in regular session, and in the city of Las Vegas during even-numbered years. 2 days before the ceremony, the selection committee must meet and select the recipients of the Nevada Medal of Distinction for that year, 1 of whom must be living and 1 of whom must be deceased. This extended appointment, nomination, and publication process helps to ensure the Nevada Medal of Distinction is upheld as a tool for impartial, bipartisan celebration and acknowledgement of Nevadans and the impactful legacies they have to offer. It's for Nevadans by Nevadans. Lastly, I would like to note that while this is a policy committee, there is a fiscal note which has been submitted for this bill from the Office of the Governor, which determines that there is a fiscal impact. Specifics are not yet available, but as soon as they are, they will be shared. In closing, I would like to thank Chair Torres and members of the committee for hearing this bill today, and I urge your support of Assembly Bill 299. We're happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you for your presentation, Speaker and Ms. Martin. At this time, members, any questions? I see Assemblyman Hibbets, then Assemblyman Thomas. Assemblyman Hibbets, begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a clarifying question. In Section 5, subsection 3, the medal is referred to as the Nevada Medal of Honor, where it is, everywhere else it is referred to as the Nevada Medal of Distinction. I just wanted to make sure that we're not stealing Congress's thunder.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Assemblyman Hibbets.
Please go directly to the members.
Thank you. Geneva Martin, for the record, that is definitely a oversight in editing, and that will be corrected.
Thank you for the clarification. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Assemblyman Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, my question was what the Assemblyman just finished asking. So thank you for the clarification.
Assemblyman Koenig, and then Assemblyman De Silva.
Thank you, Chair. So my question is on the makeup of that yearly selection committee. So you have from the governor, you have from the speaker, you have the majority leader, Senate. You don't have any one from the minority party that's involved in that selection committee. To make it truly bipartisan, is there any way that you can incorporate a member or two from the minority committee onto that, from the minority party onto that yearly selection committee?
Steve Yeager, for the record, appreciate the question. Yeah, I think there is. I mean, I think I view this as the first draft of the bill, so I think we'll incorporate those suggestions. The only thing I worry about sometimes is when we create these committees, we have to make sure that they don't get too large to carry out their function. But yeah, we will take that under consideration. I think probably a good suggestion.
Follow, if I may. I mean, right now with a governor who's of the minority party, that would be fine. But this goes in. There could be years when, if the governor's the same party and the majority is on all three, then the minority party would have no say in that.
Right, Steve Yeager, for the record, and obviously just thinking out loud, maybe there's a way to put a safeguard in there. For instance, this year it would be bipartisan. I mean, truthfully, it shouldn't be a partisan issue, right? We're talking about people that have done great things, but these are people who are going to be making nominations, and sometimes Republicans run in more Republican circles and Democrats in more Democratic circles. But I think we could probably put a provision in that if we're not in a situation where there's divided government, maybe we change the appointing authority. I think that would be a good way to make sure. And of course, as we know, our Supreme Court justices are nonpartisan, so we'll get maybe some nonpartisan members there. So appreciate the suggestion.
Thank you, Assemblyman De Silva. Assemblyman Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, good morning, Mr. Speaker. And I forgot your name, Ms. Intern, so you did a great job. Ms. Martin, thank you very much. I should have written that down. You did a great job. I do have a question. In Section 6, subsection 2, it says that 2 days before the date of the ceremony, the committee will meet and decide who's going to get the award. I'm wondering if there can't be more lead time. Someone gets an award, and then 2 days later, we want them to, they may want to have, my family may want to attend, and so on. So,
Geneva Martin, for the record, I appreciate the question. We did consider that when creating the first draft, and it was to allow, the initial idea was that no one will be notified beforehand, and the final selection of the recipient will be announced the day of, so everybody would be present at the award ceremony. That way, we're still, even if the 9 individuals that were nominated were not selected, they're still gaining recognition, and there's still a spotlight on Nevadans who are doing excellent work, even if they aren't the recipients of the award. And we thought that by giving such a small leeway into that, we're ensuring that everyone will be at the ceremony, so they're still getting that recognition, even if they aren't the recipient of the award.
Okay, so follow-up, Chair, if I may? Thank you, Ms. Martin. So 2 days before the winner will be notified. Is that the?
The recipient will be notified the day of. The actual selection will be made 2 days prior to the event.
Oh, okay, for of all the recipients, okay, I understand. Okay, thank you very much, it's very clear. Thank you, Chair.
Councilwoman DeLong.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the presentation. I actually wanted to follow up on Assemblywoman Taylor's comments on Section 6, subsection 2. Most of the bill reads as if the board is making the selection of the two recipients, but the text in 6.2 implies that the selection committee is making the selection. So there seems to be an inconsistency in that sense.
Yes, so that is probably one of the most difficult parts of this relatively simple bill. How we have it structured is the Honors and Awards Board is responsible for the public announcement of what is being decided by the committee. So we can definitely clarify that language, but to clarify now.
Sorry, so the concept is the committee will identify 9 individuals and then they'll meet internally and decide on 2.
Geneva Martin, for the record, yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Members, any additional questions? I did have actually one question regarding that, kind of following up to Assemblywoman DeLong's question. I'm just wondering if would it make more sense to just appoint the 9 members then instead of appointing the selection committee for those members? Like, shouldn't we just say that there's 9 members that are appointed, 1 appointed by the speaker, 1 appointed by this, instead of creating the committee that is then going to appoint to 9 additional members and then just have the selection committee do that? Or is the intent maybe because the event would be like overseen by the honors board? I'm just trying to understand the role of each one.
Geneva Martin, for the record. So it already is relatively separated that way. I don't think the language provided is clear enough on that. The Awards and Honors Board is going to be appointed by the governor, and they are responsible. They have nothing to do with the actual selection or nomination process other than the publication on the website of what the committee is deciding, and they are just to handle the logistics of the kind of the oversight of the entire process. It's the committee itself are the only people involved in the nomination process.
And Steve Yeager, for the record, if I could just add, because we're housing this in the governor's office, I would view the board as more of an administrative support type board. So the governor is going to have those appointments. You'll see that on page 2 of the bill, line 19 talks about the governor will appoint those 5 members who have 3-year terms. So they're the sort of administrative support because that's where the program would be housed, in the governor's office. But then the committee itself is appointed by, as noted, some by the governor, some by the speaker, some by the majority leader, some by the chief justice. That committee is the one who makes nominations and selects the award winner. And that committee is reappointed every year, so I think someone could serve multiple terms, but the idea is the administrative board will be a little bit more long-lasting. And it certainly doesn't say this in the bill, but my vision for, in an ideal world, how this would look is, that administrative board would hopefully create a website, and, the people who were nominated would have their profiles up there, much like we do for the Grammys or the Oscars, right? Here are your 5 nominees, and then, you have a winner selected, so that it would serve as a way to look back at some of the achievements. And the reason we picked one living person and one person who is deceased, because obviously we haven't had this program in the state. So I think there's a way to look back and recognize some of the contributions that those who have made that are no longer with us, but then to look forward so that there would sort of be a, I don't want to say Hall of Fame, but just a website of people in Nevada who have done really amazing things, and that's what the board itself would be tasked with, sort of that administrative support, whereas the committee is going to be a more volunteer committee who's going to go out in the community and try to find nominees and then decide on an award winner. And I'm sorry for the long answer, but I'm an attorney, and it's hard for me to be concise sometimes.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. And, I know for others coming into the most efficient committee on government affairs, it's sometimes a challenge. Assemblyman De Silva.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Speaker Yeager, for sponsoring this bill, and Ms. Martin for an awesome presentation. I had a quick question in regards to the biennium. So is the intent now to actually bestow this honor, this medal, during the ongoing of the session, or is that something that is in flux?
Shiva Martin for the record. So we have not solidified an exact timeline because of how it will differentiate between years and locations when the nomination and the selections all take place. After the first 2 years, I think there will be a better solidified schedule and time frame. As of right now, everything would begin in October and then hopefully take place by January, and then going forth, it would be as it gets done. But that's definitely something that we are wanting to clarify.
And could I add really quick, Steve Yeager? So interesting, because this bill, if you were to pass this bill and it were to pass the Senate and it were to be signed by the governor, and by the way, I've had productive conversations with the governor's office. I didn't want to just put something in his office without asking him. But this would go into effect October of this year. So that means the first award winner would be next year, which would obviously be an off session. So it would happen in Las Vegas. And I think probably gives the committee a little bit more time to figure out how this is going to work. But I think we did intend, and you see it in Section 6, that during a session year, that the award ceremony would be in Carson City on a date in which the legislature is in regular session. So I think that would be a great opportunity for us. And again, these things don't always come to pass the way you would like them to, but my vision for it would be, having a ceremony at the room that's adjacent to the governor's mansion, where the governor could present the medal, and hopefully we would all be invited to celebrate those Nevadans. But I think ideally, we'll have a year to work some of the kinks out and then hopefully have it ready to go so that those of us who are back in this building next year would be able to participate in the award ceremony here in Carson City.
And Ms. Martin, you're learning very quickly that just because it's a short bill doesn't mean that it's a short hearing. Assemblywoman Gonzalez.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Good morning. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for bringing this bill, and thank you to the constituent for emailing you. My question is there any type of requirements of the board and or the nominees to be residents? Like, could a person get this award and maybe no longer live here?
Shiva Martin for the record. That's an excellent question. They would need to be a current resident of Nevada, or at least have a residence in Nevada to still be considered for the award. And one of those stipulations can definitely be clarified by the Award and Honors Board, because they're the ones that will be listing the designated specifics of each requirement that the nominee will have to fulfill to be able to even be in the running. So that can be determined later on.
Thank you. And I think that would be helpful in a future amendment, just to clarify that they should have, and maybe specifying to a length of residence in Nevada. So somebody that has lived here 2 weeks, maybe not, but somebody who's lived here 5 years, 10 years, I don't know what that requirement might look like, but I definitely think a length of a residency requirement would be helpful. Assemblyman DeLong.
Just to follow up on that, since we're now talking about residency requirements for receiving, you have individuals that I would think wouldn't have a residence since they're deceased. Do they need to be buried in Nevada?
Steve Yeager for the record. I will note that the board itself, and that's the one that's created at line 19 of page 2, those members have to be residents of the state, so the administrative board. But I think you raise a good question, and Assemblywoman Gonzalez raised a good question. It doesn't really say necessarily if the person being awarded, although the board itself is going to come up with some regulations around this, right? What is, I mean, I think we tried not to be too prescriptive, but what is a significant and lasting contribution? What does that mean? So I think some of that will be fleshed out by the board. I certainly could foresee a scenario where the board would determine, look, maybe you don't currently have to live in Nevada, but you have to have lived here at some point and done something for those who are living. But to your question, which I don't know if it was a serious one or not, but I think I don't think there'd be a requirement that you'd have to be buried in the state of Nevada. But ideally, you'd have some family here, right? Because I think it's a good opportunity to bring family members in and honor their loved ones who have passed on.
Chair, a follow-up?
Yes.
It was actually somewhat serious, but a couple of good examples would be Mark Twain or John Mackey, both of which didn't, end their life in Nevada, but certainly made contributions.
Well, Steve Yeager for the record, and now we have those two in the minutes. So when that first selection committee comes together, there's a couple suggestions right there. Thank you, Assemblyman.
Members, any additional questions or any other names you want to get on the record? Assemblyman Gonzalez.
Thank you so much for the follow-up. When you were talking about the board discussing like what the requirements would be, would that change, or once this initial board makes those determinations, that's the requirement for receiving the award? Thank you.
Giving her the hard questions.
The intern can do it. Geneva Martin, for the record. I think they can definitely be subject to change, but the first set of requirements will probably set the precedent for what is done going forward. And I mean, there may be some changes, perhaps about posthumous locations that could be made going forward, or potentially about the length of time that someone has lived in Nevada. Those things could all be subject to change, but the primary requirements of defining what is a significant and lasting contribution and things as such that will be definitions will remain the same.
Members, any questions? You've been awfully quiet today. No, it's because they got that extra hour of sleep this morning. It doesn't look like there's any additional questions. Thank you for not throwing away your shot, Ms. Martin. You did a phenomenal job with your first presentation and answering all of our questions. At this time, we'll we'll go ahead and move into support for AB 299.
Good morning, Chair and members of the Efficient Government Affairs Committee. We would like to thank the sponsor and Ms. Martin for bringing this bill forward. For the record, my name is Dylan Keith with the Vegas Chamber. We regularly put on our own CSE awards for Customer Service Excellence Awards, and we recognize that there are so many Nevadans that go unrecognized for going above and beyond what they have to do. And being able to tell their stories is incredibly important, and for that reason, we are in support of this bill, and we urge your support as well. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. For the record, David Cherry with the City of Henderson. We're also honored to support the Speaker's bill this morning, and I wouldn't be surprised if one of the members of this committee might be in the running one time for one of these awards.
Is there anyone else wishing to testify in support of AB 299 here in Carson City or in Las Vegas? Seeing none, we'll go to the phones. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of AB 299?
Chair, the line is open and working, but there are no callers at this time.
I'll invite anyone wishing to testify in opposition to AB 299. See none in Carson City. I don't see any in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition to AB 299?
Chair, the line is open and working, and there are no callers at this time.
Thank you. And now I'll invite anyone wishing to testify neutral to AB 299 here in Carson City or in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify neutral to AB 299?
Chair, the line is open and working, but there are no callers at this time.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and invite the bill sponsors for any closing remarks. Maybe a requirement of this committee should be to ask the question whether they grew up to be a hero or a scholar.
Steve Yeager for the record. I just want to thank the committee for allowing me the opportunity to present, and thank you for welcoming Ms. Martin to the committee. It's a real pleasure to be able to have her present the bill, given that she did all the work on the bill. So thank you for the consideration, and I'll hand it over to Ms. Martin for any other concluding remarks.
Geneva Martin for the record. I would also like to say thank you for not traumatizing me my first time sitting before you. Appreciate all of the questions, and we will definitely find a way to make sure that they all are thoroughly addressed and answered. Again, thank you for the opportunity, and I definitely urge your support for AB 299.
Thank you. At this time, I'll close the hearing on AB 299. And rest assured, Ms. Martin, all the traumatization would happen in judiciary, but never in government affairs. All right, today we will be conducting a work session to take action on measures the committee has heard in previous meetings. It is not customary for the committee to take testimony or otherwise rehear the bills during a work session. However, I may invite a witness to come forward for clarification or questions during consideration of a measure or perhaps during one of the amendments. We will go ahead and start today with AB 13. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Rudy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Jennifer Rudy, Committee Policy Analyst, and as nonpartisan LCB staff, I do not advocate for or against legislation. I'm just merely walking you through the work session document. Assembly Bill 13 relates to whistleblower protections for state officers and employees. The measure imposes a time limit of not later than 10 working days after the date on which the alleged violation or reprisal or retaliatory action occurred for a state officer or employee to file a written appeal with the hearing officer of the Personnel Commission of the Division of Human Resource Management of the Department of Administration. And it is the one amendment by the Office of the Attorney General that actually changes that from 10 working days to 60 working days. So that is the amendment that is in the work session document. And then the measure eliminates the authority of a hearing officer to order the termination of employment of the proper person. Thank you.
Members, are there any questions? All right, I will entertain a motion on to do pass as amended for AB 13. I heard a motion from Assemblyman Thomas and a second from Assemblyman Gurr. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and take a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. All right, this motion does pass. And I'll go ahead and assign the floor statement to Assemblyman De Silva.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Jennifer Rudy, Committee Policy Analyst. Assembly Bill 18 revises the composition of the Division of Enterprise Information Technology Services of the Department of Administration and modernizes certain statutory language to better define the work of the division. The measure further authorizes the division to provide service for certain agencies to facilitate the economical processing of information throughout the state government. And there were no amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion on AB 18. So moved. I have a motion from Assemblyman Carter. Do I have a second? Second. Second from Assemblywoman Duran. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, this motion does carry. And I'll go ahead and assign the floor statement to Assemblyman DeLong. We'll go ahead and move on to AB 28.
Okay, again, this is Jennifer Rudy, Committee Policy Analyst. Assembly Bill 28 is a bill from the state treasurer to establish the Nevada Baby Bonds Program and the Nevada Baby Bonds Trust Fund. The measure authorizes the state treasurer to adopt regulations relating to the program and to administer the program and the trust fund. The measure appropriates $80 million from the state general fund to the trust fund to establish the program. Specifically related to the program, the measure requires the Department of Health and Human Services to notify the state treasurer of the birth of a designated beneficiary. Upon such notification, the state treasurer shall, within the limits of money made available for this purpose, credit $3,200 from the trust fund to the designated beneficiary. A designated beneficiary is defined as a natural person born in Nevada on or after January 1st, 2024, whose birth was subject to medical coverage provided under Medicaid or the Children's Health Insurance Program. When submitting a claim to the state treasurer to receive money in the trust fund credited to the designated beneficiary, the designated beneficiary must be at least 18 years old but less than 30, have been a resident of Nevada for at least the 12 months immediately preceding the submission of the claim, and attest that the money will be used for certain purposes related to post-secondary education, to purchase a home, to start or purchase a business, or for certain investments. And related to some concerns expressed by the committee, the state treasurer did submit an amendment subsequent to the hearing that is in your work session document. And those amendments are in Section 9 and Section 14 of the bill. It requires a designated beneficiary to successfully complete a course in financial literacy prior to being able to claim funds credited to them in the Nevada Baby Bond Trust Fund. And it requires any regulations adopted by the state treasurer pursuant to this act to include provisions to ensure designated beneficiaries complete financial literacy coursework that includes training on the rights and protections available to consumers when using their baby bond funds to take out student loans, purchase a home, start a small business, or invest in financial assets or personal capital that provide long-term gains to a designated beneficiary's wages or wealth. And I believe that was the only amendment presented. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'll ask members any questions? Seeing none, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to amend and to pass. I have a motion from Assemblywoman Carter, and then I have a second from Assemblywoman Gonzalez. Is there any discussion? Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Can you just raise a hand so I can get it for the record? Assemblyman DeLong, Assemblyman Gurr, Assemblyman Hibbets, Assemblyman Koenig, and Assemblyman MacArthur. And I will go ahead and assign the floor statement to Assemblyman Taylor. All right, we will go ahead and go forward with AB 92.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Jennifer Rudy, Committee Policy Analyst. Again, Assembly Bill 92 authorizes a Board of County Commissioners to create the Office of County Counsel to perform many of the non-criminal duties otherwise assigned to the District Attorney. Any such county counsel is authorized to appoint deputies and other clerical, investigational, and operational staff. County counsel is prohibited from conducting criminal prosecutions or bringing certain civil actions relating to an obligation for child support. There were no amendments. Thank you.
Members, any questions? Okay, well, I will entertain a motion to do pass on AB 92. I have a motion from Assemblyman Hibbets and a second from Assemblywoman Duran. Is there any discussion? I'll go to Assemblyman Gurr and then Assemblyman Hibbets.
Madam Chair, I'm going to vote yes to get this out of committee, but I reserve my right to vote no on the floor. Thank you.
And to keep it simple, ditto.
Assemblyman MacArthur, you have to say to the microphone.
For the record, I'd like to reserve my right to change.
Assemblyman Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would also like to reserve my right to change my mind.
Assemblyman Wynn.
Thank you, Chair. Ditto to what Assemblyman Taylor and the rest of the colleague just said.
Okay, at this time, I'll go ahead and move on to the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. I have Assemblyman DeLong is in opposition. I'll go ahead and assign the floor statement to Assemblyman Koenig. We'll go ahead and move forward with AB 177.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jennifer Rudy again. Assembly Bill 177 adds an association for operators to the list of entities that the state demographer of the Department of Taxation must, upon request, provide the fiscal year-end parcel data set of a county. The measure adds, without limitation, Underground Service Alert of Northern California and Nevada or its successor organization to the definition of an association for operators related to this provision. And the attached amendment is from the Nevada Association of Counties, and it is to clarify that employees and agents of these companies cannot disseminate parcel data set information. Thank you.
Members, any questions? I'll entertain a motion to amend and do pass AB 177. I have a motion from Assemblyman De Silva, and I have a second from, I don't know who said the second. Assemblyman Gurr, thank you. At this time, I'll see, is there any discussion on this motion? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, this motion does pass. And I'll go ahead and sign the floor statement to Assemblyman Gurr. Congratulations on the freshman getting your first BDRs out of committee. And we'll go ahead and continue with AB 189.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Jennifer Rudy, Committee Policy Analyst. Assembly Bill 189 provides that if the Board of County Commissioners in a county whose population is 700,000 or more, currently only Clark County, or the governing body of a city which is located in such a county adopts an ordinance restricting the hours in which construction work may begin in a common interest community. As the bill is currently written, it says the hours for construction work in a common interest community must not begin later than 5 a.m. during the period beginning on April 1st and ending on September 30th. The governing body of a county or city to which these provisions apply must amend any ordinance not in compliance with these provisions as of July 1, 2023, and any existing ordinance regulating excessive noise is also subject to these provisions. However, following the bill hearing, the bill sponsor did submit an amendment that I omitted from the work session document, so I apologize. That was provided to all of you this morning, kind of a free floating document that you should have found at your workspace, and I believe it is up on Nellis also. It has just ever so slightly different wording, but the amendment to AB 189 is if the Board of County Commissioners in a county whose population is 700,000 or more adopts an ordinance restricting the hours in which construction work in a declarant-controlled common interest community may begin, the hours for construction work in a common interest community must be allowed to begin at, and this is where it's just slightly different wording in just these few words, but no earlier than 5 a.m. during the period beginning on April 1st and ending on September 30th. And then there was a second proposed amendment suggested by the committee, and that was to amend Section 7 of the bill to change the effective date from July 1, 2023 to upon passage and approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions or any questions on the amendment? I know that we have Ms. Capurro here that's happy to answer anything. Someone MacArthur, did you have a question?
No question, but I'm going to say yes and reserve my right.
Okay, thank you. No questions on the amendment. Thank you. All right, we will go ahead and entertain a motion to amend and do pass. I have a motion from Assemblyman Gonzalez, and I have a second from Assemblyman DeLong. Is there any discussion on the motion other than Assemblyman MacArthur, who already commented? He's speaking a lot in committee today. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, this motion does carry. And I will go ahead and assign the floor statement to Assemblywoman Howdy. All right, we'll go ahead and close the work session, and we'll go ahead and move on to public comment. As a reminder, each person has 2 minutes to provide testimony. Public comment may be submitted in writing to the committee up to 24 hours after the hearing. Is there anyone in person wishing to give public comment? I don't see any here in Carson City or in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to give public comment?
Chair, the line is open and working, but there are no callers choosing to provide public comment at this time.
Thank you. And as a couple reminders for the committee, tomorrow we will be meeting at 8 a.m. Nice, bright and early for the most efficient committee. For just tomorrow, I think there will also be breakfast for committee members in the chair's office. So we'll have a nice little breakfast since we have to be up here so early. Is there any questions or any comments from members before we adjourn? Assemblymember MacArthur, go ahead. MacArthur minute. He said he's fine today. He'll save it for tomorrow since he'll be up a little earlier. All right, seeing no further business before this committee, the committee is adjourned.